Last Jedi on Blu-ray. Got it. I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that, maybe a week ago. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I didn't rush. I mean, like I was actually gonna go on Tuesday and grab it when it came out, but then I said no, I don't want to go out. I don't feel good.
Well, I kind of did the opposite of that. I knew it was coming out on a Tuesday, but I knew for some reason I psychically knew. You know what? I think this is going to be a popular title, so I went on like at, I believe it was midnight my time, midnight West. Like Tuesday morning at midnight.
Amazon.
I went on my phone. I had the Amazon app and I ordered it immediately. And within an hour, it had been sold out, and the scalpers and the prices were going up.
I've seen a bunch of videos about that being some kind of a conspiracy. Half of them are Disney has a bad relationship with Amazon, or the forced scarcity.
Oh yeah, and you couldn't do. Yeah, that was another thing. You can't do. For some reason, they are in a sort of either like almost like a trade war with Amazon and Disney or something. You can't do pre-orders. It's because a lot of titles you can get a pre-order, so you make sure you get your copy. But no, you couldn't do a pre-order. So it's like this title will be available on this day. I'm like, okay.
Right.
So the title went up because I remembered. I think part of the reason I did that was because I wanted to get one of those Nintendo Classics, and I knew when it was going to be available. So I was like, I waited to get on Amazon. So I got it like it will be available at this time. So I'm like, as soon as the clock ticked to the time, I ordered, unavailable. Error.
Well, when I went to Best Buy,
scalpers got them.
When I went to Best Buy, there were 5 different versions of the movie available in bulk quantities, so I could have gotten anything I want. I was about to grab the Steelbook, but it was $35, so I just grabbed.
No. Well, you did as I did. We got the 4K one because it comes with the
4K,
Blu-ray.
Ultra HD,
ourselves for
4K Blu-ray and digital copy, I guess.
And I got it also because I had gotten a 4K TV and 4K Blu-ray player from my parents, and it made it easier for me because I'm mostly I have Blu-ray, I have standard HD, so I'm like, hey, I can't loan them a DVD. It's not like a multi-DVD comes with a DVD. So I was like, hey, I'll give them the 4K. They can watch it because it is just the movie. Like all the special features and commentary and everything, that's all on the Blu-ray. So I gave them the 4K. When I hooked it up, which was I think like a week ago, I was like, here, have this 4K. And then when I come and visit again in like a month and a half, I'll just pick it up. So that was kind of why I did that. But also so I can be future proof because one day I'm going to have 4K. I don't know when, but I'm ready for it.
Well,
and the quality difference was like, at least on this TV, minimal difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K, but I've heard various reviews of.
No, well, I mean, I think it's okay. It's the transfer, everything like that, pristine, of course. I think if it is as good as it is, it's not going to need that much to make it look even better. I mean, it really did. From the opening titles, we were looking at the opening title. I watched it with my daughter today, and the titles were so crisp and clean. They looked like they came right out of my computer and went into this thing. They looked so clean, and the crawl, of course, it looked too good. It looked too good. It was too clean. I mean, it was like the most.
Well, that's the thing.
It doesn't feel like a movie at that point. I felt like I told you this. These were my preliminary notes about it. It almost looked, and I'm watching the movie all the way through. It looked like video. It looked like video quality. It was very, very sharp in a way that that motion picture isn't, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
It was shot on film, and then it was transferred to like 4K portions. Intermediate, and then finally. And then it was finally transferred to like, but the difference, it's not just about the pixels, and this is sort of a technical thing where it has the 4K also has what's called HDR, and you don't have HDR, you're just watching on a Blu-ray anyway. But
actually, I do. I have
bright.
I do have HDR.
Now, the TV can be HDR, but the TV can be HDR. But you're not watching it on a 4K Blu-ray, so it's just going to play it as like a standard Blu-ray and then upscale it to 4K. But it's not going to give you the HDR. It's not going to give you the improved color of what your TV.
I actually did. No, I did not get the I did not get that television that we looked at. I got the one that was a step above, and it does come with that dynamic picture, so it is very clear. I mean, it was just incredibly clear.
Oh, what now? What did you get? Did you get the you got the TCL?
I got a TCL, but it was a step up from that 279 one.
The one, oh, the one that I was suggesting.
I wound up paying like $400, I think.
Oh no, that's the one. That's the one.
No, the one we were looking at before was a 279, and it didn't come with HDR. This one comes with HDR. It says it right there on the television.
Well, I told you, that was the one. Yeah, that was the one you got. You got the TCL.
That's why I was so exhausted at the Best Buy when I bought it, because I felt like I was being gang raped by all their customer service people.
No, you got the right one. But what I'm saying is your TV is HDR, but if you're watching on Blu-ray, it's not going to do HDR.
I can't. Well, the thing is, I can't imagine this looking any better than what it looks like. I mean, it looks
does. Well, see, that's
absolutely
the thing is, it
fantastic.
because what HDR does, it gives you super bright, like highlights, specular highlights, better colors, and deeper dark blacks. And your TV is somewhat capable of that, but a more expensive TV would probably give you better. Might give you better motion and make it look more film-like. I don't know. I would literally have to go.
I don't think we're headed in that direction, though. I think we're headed more toward, because the Blade Runner disc looked. That looked more film-like to me than this one.
Interesting, and that was shot digital.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. Like, this was shot on film.
It's all about frame rates. It's all about the frame rate. Yeah. This has a very, very high frame rate. The nearest comparison I can come up with is the Twilight Zone, the original TV series Blu-ray transfers. Because of the frame rate, what they did, and going back and remastering, they made all the episodes have a video-like quality to them, because they were incredibly sharp. And you can see some of it if you look at the Sci-Fi Channel, because they're using the 4K transfers.
Yeah, you know what? I watched those. I would say that what part of it is what your TV does, because I know what you're talking about. It's supposed to be just sort of a 60 hertz frame rate on the TV, but it's got this sort of like backlight that's supposed to make it actually like 120 hertz. Mm-hmm. It gives you a slight, what they call soap opera effect.
Yeah.
Just slight. Like some TVs are like really like they make everything look. This is just slight, and it's mostly when things pan down is when you kind of really notice it, as opposed to side to side. Mm. And I've noticed this, and so you notice that like when you're watching, say, Last Jedi, and they're doing the crawl, and then it moves down, it really kind of has that interesting sort of almost video look it's panning down.
It looked flawless, the crawl, to me. It looked absolutely flawless, and it was so prominent, I guess. The text was so crystal clear, and that's why I think that like the text, the visual effects in space were shot HD.
Yeah, most of the special effects are done 2K, and
the action, the drama between the characters is shot in film.
The funny thing is I think I heard like part of the reasons they shoot special effects in 2K is to process 4K it requires so much more computing and so much more computers and so much more electricity and so much more heat that the difference is so slight that it's like it ends up spending millions and millions of more dollars to do the same thing as opposed to doing it in 2K. And since a lot of movies are actually like the digital intermediate is already 2K and then upscaled to 4K, they figure, well, we'll do the digital intermediate, we'll do everything in 2K, and we'll just upscale it to 4K and no one will notice. So I think that's it saves them so much money.
Going back on that, I said something about some of the dramatic scenes were shot in film, but not all of them, because there was a depth of field. I noticed that there was this is one of the big problems with HD is depth of field, which is you have a character in the foreground and a character in the background, and whenever they pull the focus on a particular character who enters into a scene, the scene kind of squeezes a little bit.
Well, do you think it has to do with the fact? Was it perhaps shot because it was shot on film? It was shot on 35. It was probably shot with those Panavision lenses, and those are
you're not going to get that effect if you're shooting on film. You only get that effect if you're shooting in HD, because that's a big problem with those new Aeroflex and Panavision digital cameras that they're using now.
This was not shot like in a Super 35. This was shot, I believe, with like Panavision lenses and like anamorphic lenses and whatnot.
But for some reason, when you're adapting that to the digital, to the hard drive that they shoot it on, it does that. Yeah. The lens has this issue with resolving that, and it's not spherical. It's all pixels. That's how it goes.
I mean, I watched it at just 1080p. I mean, I told you I watched it in 4K. And I kind of like did it back and forth when I was testing the 4K TV, and I'm back and forth because I'm watching it on the 4K disc and I'm watching it on Blu-ray, and maybe it's just the TV is small. It's like a 43-inch. And I really could not tell the difference because I was kind of far away.
It's a great, I gotta say.
But it looks really crisp and clear.
It's probably,
I could not tell the difference.
It's probably one of the best Blu-rays you could buy.
There are many reviews out there that say it's just a minor uptick.
Oh, and the sound quality, very good sound quality.
Sound quality was good.
It was a nice mix of music, dialogue, and sound effects.
Yeah, I watched mostly I watched it on 1080p Blu-ray on my 1080p plasma, and I have that hooked up to my surround sound. But one of the differences, the 4K,
it's a little low. You have to pump it up a little bit, though.
Yeah, the 4K, which I do not have hooked up to my sort of main plasma setup, that's in Dolby Atmos, which is surround around you and then speakers above you, but that's only on the 4K. The standard Blu-ray is in DTS surround sound, DTS HD, which they could have easily. Blu-ray, you can put Dolby Atmos on a Blu-ray. There's no problem technically from doing that. Or a DTS X, which is basically the DTS version of Dolby Atmos with speakers above you. But they just did a standard surround sound mix, and then my receiver can upmix it and sort of do its best to create a speaker above situation. Mm-hmm. And it sounded good. It sounded as good as something like that can sound, but it didn't have that extra oomph that usually a Dolby Atmos has.
I had
more airy.
I don't know. I think I had the opposite experience because I think it plays better on my TV than it did at the theater.
And you just watched it on the TV speakers, or
I had on my stereo. I always play things through my stereo. It sounded better and it looked better on my TV than it did in the theater, and that was the RPX that we saw that in.
Yeah, it really does depend on the theater. Of I saw it in a Dolby Cinema, but I was kind of off on the side. I saw it in IMAX 3D, but that's a different experience because I was a little close and it was in 3D and it looked kind of muddy and it looked good, but not like this looks the best. This looks like a very crisp, solid, very film-like. It's shot on film.
Very film-like.
On my plasma setup, it looks about as good as something, but it did have this interesting, and this has more to do with the cinematography. It had this very warm earth tone, almost like Return of the Jedi look to the sort of the photography, where it's like a lot of reds, a lot of browns.
Well, mostly red. Red seems to be the primary color, but for me, it had problems resolving red. It always has problems resolving red. Red is very hard to successfully duplicate. It's like, okay, I'll give you an example. There are two bits in the movie where red is used as a primary color. One is inside the I guess the dreadnought or something like that. You've got this red light bouncing off of this commander's face, and it's bleeding.
Yeah.
It tends to bleed a lot.
Well, no, I think that was intentional. I think that's like an intentional.
But it looked like that NTSC red color bleeding that you saw on tube televisions. Now the other time is in Snoke's throne room, and that looks absolutely perfect. If there's one thing I can't fault about Last Jedi, it is the production design. It is absolutely staggering, and I thought Snoke's throne room was one of the best things about that.
You watched it with the audio commentary. Did you hear when the director talked about how that was actually like a practical? It was not. There was not like a green screen around him, and then they just added the red later. This was actually like red curtains.
I only listened to about maybe 10 minutes of the commentary because I could not.
You got kind of sick of his voice.
I could not stand his voice. He sounds like a child. He sounds like a 15-year-old. It's weird because he's 43, but he sounds like a 15-year-old who got a shot at directing a Star Wars movie, and it's just he's like, and the effect I was going for here was like I was wanted to do this thing here, and I was just like, shut the. I knew he was going to say that too. I knew he was going to be like, well, I was going for this effect, and I really wanted this, and I was just like, oh boy, man, can you imagine taking direction from that? It's like, Mark, I just want you to say the line. I wrote the line. I'm the writer.
I think that we kind of agreed to disagree on the look of the film. Of like, you said it looked one way, and I said it looked very similar to the J.J. Abrams look. I would sort of amend that.
No, I think J.J. Abrams has a better grasp on his lenses and his film. This is a kid. The kind of director that Rian Johnson is, he's the kind who just says action and cut. and go slower, go faster. He's not the kind of guy who's like J.J. Abrams is very much involved in the photography, the choice of film stock, the choice of lenses, the choice of lighting. Rian Johnson is simply too inexperienced to have that level.
He talks about on the commentary about a lot of things that he did were sort of like tweaked in editing.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like some lines of dialogue were changed by Benicio del Toro's, like some of his like one of his lines kind of near the end of the movie when he leaves and he says I can't remember what they say to him, but he at the end of it he just says maybe, and then he walks away.
Uh-huh.
And he said originally he had this whole speech of like yeah but I'm rich or something like that, and he says he wouldn't say that. So it's
I'm
like
rich, bitch.
He seemed to be open to like ideas coming towards him and then maybe fixing them, as they say, fix it in post. Yeah. Although I don't think he like had a general idea of fixing things in post, but he'd be like, yeah, you know what, this needs a little bit of this, so we need a little bit, because he talks about like they went back and reshot some things, but of course that's like intentional. The way that they shoot things is like, well, you
have to go back for all kinds of like because you're like, just making one mistake after another, and you're throwing a lot of good money after bad money. But he's not. I mean, like Ryan. I was I've been looking at Peter Hyams movies because I'm getting ready for Extreme Cinema now. Peter Hyams is not only a director; he's a cinematographer, and he shoots a lot of his own stuff too.
And his movies all have a distinct look to them.
They have
like they have that Peter Hyams.
Okay,
look
I looked at Stay Tuned and I looked at Time Cop, and I'm going to be looking at Running Scared later. Stay Tuned is a flawed movie. It's filled with it's so many missed opportunities and all this stuff that I'll probably get into when I talk to Andrew about it, but it is beautifully shot. It is so incredibly well shot. It should have gotten an Oscar or some kind of a nomination. He's never gotten an Oscar nomination. He painstakingly, and Time Cop too. Time Cop, beautifully shot movie, and it's just there's like a kind of an old Hollywood sophistication to it, where he's using certain lenses to achieve certain. He's got smoke. He's got little like available light. He shoots with available light.
And from what I remember of Running Scared, and I'm gonna get to Running Scared because it's one of my sort of Laserdisc pickups. I'm like I'm buying this. It's like I got the widescreen version for like $2. I will go back now. Of course, it won't be like Blu-ray super high def, but I will be able to kind of look at from what I remember of that movie. It had a very Peter Hyams look to it. You know, it has that sort of, I want to say Ridley Scott light kind of look to it, where it's like it's not beating you over the head with the visuals.
I don't know that it has a look, because if you compare Stay Tuned with Time Cop and Running Scared, they're all different format. I mean, like they're all shot in Panavision. He does that.
Yeah,
but Chicago,
that was sort of his thing. Yeah.
Chicago in Running Scared is a cold place, so it's a very cold winter Chicago kind of movie. But it has such detail, such depth of field, and such contrast to it that it's just.
Well, also he was always about the framing too. Like everything was meticulously framed.
And these HD transfers of those movies look fantastic.
Yeah.
And you miss quite a bit when you were a kid looking at these movies on cable, because they chop it. You can't see anything. He loves the widescreen composition. He's like John Carpenter that way. The only way to watch those kind of movies is in the original Panavision format. They just look.
Well, see, that's one of the things that's great about living in this age of video that we live now. Every movie you get is in its original aspect ratio now. When you get it on,
pretty much. Well,
now, sometimes on cable they fudge things.
Or if you go to like Rite Aid and look at their budget bin, you'll see Rogue One in full screen format for some reason.
What? Where do you get?
You can. They are available.
Korean knockoff.
You have to be very careful because they do sell full screen versions of a lot of these movies, but it's not as many as what you see, because we live in a big screen TV era now, so people won't complain anymore.
What's great about it is it's like if you have something that's say like shot flat, it just fills up the screen because everything is 16:9. And then if it's shot in Panavision, 2.4:1, it's still only mildly letterbox. It's kind of like when you used to watch like a Panavision film on like a 3x4, it was like the strip across the screen. Whereas now your screen is already wide, so it's just a little bit.
Yeah, it's like trying to watch Lawrence of Arabia on a 13-inch TV. It's ridiculous.
I did that too. Like when I was, that's one of the first movies where I was like, now that's a movie, and I watched it on VHS. It was like I had a VHS hi-fi stereo machine, so I was like, I had like 2 speakers hooked up, had it on a 19-inch TV, and I'm watching the widescreen VHS of Lawrence of Arabia, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Okay. Just a little bit about the movie. Now, the movie does improve for me on the second viewing on my television. It plays better as a movie on my television than it did when I first saw it.
You're less mad.
No. I had a fuck you count that I was doing. I was like, okay, this is the first fuck you. This is the second fuck you. This is the third fuck. I got up to about 35 fuck yous, basically.
That's why I love it. That's why I love it.
But I began to understand a little bit more about, I guess, the concept of Skywalker talking. The thing about it is, this is all writer stuff, where writers are writing stuff they think is important or sounds important. So he has Skywalker saying stuff like the Jedi must end. But the thing is, the problem with this is, yes, I can appreciate in principle what the message is, but when it comes to the actual mechanics of the situation, it makes no sense. And this is why I wanted to talk to you about checks and balances. The reason that you have a Jedi Council is so that you can monitor and control something that can be dangerously volatile. And we know this because we have the dark side of the Force and we have the light side of the Force. What you need is a political or governing body to control that. This movie asserts that people will have this power regardless of their being Jedi, that they'll always have this power. This is a dangerous power to have. It's a dangerous power to wield, so therefore we need a reigning body politic to control this in some way. So the Jedi may end, but we need to have a governance over it. And I also begin to understand that R2 basically, once again, kind of saves the day in a way, because he's always the hero of the movie. Of every one of these movies, R2 seems to be a hero. He convinces Luke to help in some way. Yeah. And
that's kind of early on in the movie.
It's early on in the movie, but
he basically just he urges he whips out the guilt with the hologram of Princess Leia, and then that's when Luke, and this was when
and he says that was a cheap shot. And it was.
It takes multiple viewings for me to understand what's going on. So what that does is that tells Luke, and then he's like, okay, I will help Rey. I will train Rey.
Yeah, he says, I'll give you 3 lessons.
He only really gets 1 training session in, because he does the first training session, and then she goes right to the dark side immediately, or at least sees it.
Well, yeah. See, that's why you need some level of control.
But that's the last thing, and this is where I got confused. Of like, why did he keep training her? And it's like, I look back, it's like he didn't keep on training her. He sort of talked to her, but he wasn't training her anymore. There's like her messing around with the lightsaber and everything, and stuff like that. But that's her doing it on her own. This was something else I noticed. Okay, so she got that lightsaber from that box that Maz Kanata had on that place. Somehow, Anakin, then Luke Skywalker's lightsaber got in that box. Now, in the flashback that he has, when you find out why
the box also
Kylo
contains
Ren,
Marcellus Wallace's soul.
Yes. Kylo Ren, and at that time, Ben Solo, when Luke is training him, if you'll notice, Luke does his lightsaber thing where he turns it on for half a second and thinks he can end it. Ben Solo reacts with the blue lightsaber. He doesn't have that red lightsaber.
Yeah.
Somehow, his lightsaber, because if you go back to The Force Awakens, when he fights Rey the first time, he goes, that lightsaber, it belongs to me. That means she got his lightsaber. Somehow, the lightsaber that Ben Solo had, and before, I guess that was before he built his own, because that's kind of what the Jedi way is that you build your own.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Somehow that got from him into that box.
Well,
now did Snoke, was it planted?
No, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that when Luke Skywalker's hand was chopped off, his severed hand with the lightsaber was removed and put in a box. That's what I think happened.
Mm-hmm. But we don't know.
They won. They won the at the end of Jedi and the revamped version of Jedi. We see a celebration on Cloud City, which means somebody came back and maybe picked up. Oh, by the way, do you have my brother's hand and his saber? Thank you. I'll just take that.
Yeah, the theory is that Lando Calrissian went back after this whole thing was done, He went back to Cloud
Are
City.
we gonna see Billy D in the final movie? We should.
Billy D.
We should absolutely see that. This is such a diss that they're gonna have to bring him in anyway. They're gonna have to be like, Carrie's dead. We need somebody.
Don't bring him in to kill him. Don't kill Billy D. We love Billy D.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's like it plays a lot better now for me than it did when it came out.
Oh, I think it gets better with. I loved it when I saw it.
But it's still, for me, it still has all the flaws. It still has all the same flaws. It's a stupid.
I love it for all of its flaws.
The stupid middle act on that planet, the diversity hire chubby janitor, the forced love story between them. And I liked the moments. My favorite moment in the movie is at the end when Rey and Finn finally hug at the end. That because their relationship means more to me than
I had like a
than
thought
this horse shit.
The last, say, 20 minutes. What if if they had gone back? Because remember, this had been pretty much totally shot, and then Carrie Fisher died.
Yeah.
So they had a year to fix this sort of editing.
Yeah, they did.
Could they not have tweaked the ending just a little bit so that it ends, have more Luke stuff in it? Like, you go back and do that. Put more Luke stuff in at the end, and then have
wait,
that
no,
final...
actually...
No,
wait, I'm trying to think of the chronology here. I think Carrie Fisher died right before Rogue One came out. That's what it was. Okay.
Right before Rogue One.
So, yeah, they did have a year. They did have a year.
Yeah, they had a year to fix this. If they had ended it where Holdo does the light speed through the ships, everything explodes. So they've already had the lightsaber battle in the throne room. Okay. You have that kind of be the ending, tweak it a little bit, have more Luke stuff, have Luke kind of decide, okay, I'm going to help or something like that, but don't end it there and not have Luke do the fun. That way you can have the final battle on the planet at the beginning of episode 9. You can have the battle on the planet. You can have more Carrie Fisher. You can actually have Carrie Fisher in episode 9 that way. Have Luke's sacrifice be in episode 9, not at the end of episode 8. You could have tweaked it. It would have been just about as good. You would have had way more footage for episode 9, and you could have tweaked it from that. And that way you could have had some sort of final send-off for Princess Leia.
You could have. These decisions could have been made. Like you said, they had a year.
Yeah,
they decided not to do that. And it wound up screwing them because the character who dies in the movie, the actor's still alive. The character who's still alive, the actress died. So they have a problem here.
Yeah. I mean, I know they're going to bring back Luke in some way, but we just don't know what. But I thought that... My guess
evidently, if Yoda can set a freaking Jedi temple on fire by force projecting himself to do it, force ghosting himself and doing it, then obviously Luke is going to have that power too.
And I don't think that Luke projecting himself killed him. I think he was like he did the thing, he did the sort of force projection, and he's like, I've done what I needed to do, and it's time to go. And it's meh.
It's still horseshit to me. And from what I've understood, I read a few articles with interviews with Simon Pegg. He said that JJ was disturbed by some of the things. Although JJ publicly has to put on the space that it was the right, everything was good, and he has to support the movie. He is going to be retconning a few things.
He produced the damn thing.
No, he didn't. He didn't have any. He was an executive producer in name only on that movie. Bad Robot is a production company. It was not affiliated with the movie.
I will say some of the stuff. If you watch the commentary, he'll say Rian Johnson will basically say something like, I didn't know if I could do this or if this was working. But then Kathleen Kennedy liked it, so it stayed in. Yeah. So it's she was like, he was making decisions for better or for worse, and she was liking them. So whether you like this movie or you don't like this movie, it's it's pretty much her movie.
Yeah.
It's not Rogue One where they had to come in and fix a ton of shit.
But when I think Star Wars, I don't think Kathleen Kennedy. I think George Lucas. And I think Lucas should come in as some kind of a consultant.
Lucas doesn't know shit. He didn't even know. He had his whole thing with the brother and sister, and he didn't know what he was doing.
All right, let's wrap that up, okay? Yep. That was a really long one.
Yeah.
All right.
But the consensus is that you hate it slightly less.
Well, I hate it slightly less, but it still has its same place where it was before. It's just it's a lot easier to take when you're sitting in your home around the people you love.
Would you say that this is perhaps the Alien 3 of Star Wars?
No, Alien 3 was really good. I liked it a lot.
See, there you go.
Alien 3 was wonderful. Alien Resurrection. This is the Alien Resurrection.
boring.
It's a letdown. It's a big letdown.
I gotta say, I did like Alien. What's what the last one was? Alien Covenant.
I like them all.
Like
Actually, I like them all, but Alien Resurrection is probably the worst of them for me. Alien, Ridley Scott, brilliant, beautiful movie. Aliens, James Cameron, you can't go wrong. Alien 3, great ideas, great stuff. David Fincher was a director I admired for a long time until he went nuts. And I forget, Jean-Jacques Annaud or something? John something or another, directing Alien Resurrection.
Jean-Paul Genou.
Jean-Paul Genou, who did City of Lost Children, which was a great movie. But
yeah, this was like pretty much his first and only big Hollywood movie.
Yeah, and I don't count the Alien versus Predator movies because they're stupid. And I really loved Prometheus. I thought it was fantastic to look at. And Alien Covenant I really liked too. So
Alien Covenant I liked because it was a lot more simple to understand.
But Alien Covenant is a direct sequel to Prometheus.
Yeah, legitimate thrills and a little bit of a twist and kind of as my mom would say, a damn son of a bitch ending.
Damn son of a bitch.
Which I always like. God damn son
yeah,
of a
when they
bitch.
figure out that's the only thing about Alien Covenant is that I figured out that was David. I knew that was David. I knew they were going to do
I knew
a
that was
switcheroo.
happening. I was like, okay, you got two androids. They basically went with the Star Trek Nemesis ending of like, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.